Ladies and gentlemen, we are officially in the endgame now. The year is 1904, and the world's most powerful billionaire has just been brought down to his knees. For his entire career up until that point, John D. Rockefeller was not only an ultra-rich businessman, but a well-respected individual amongst the public as well. People saw him as hardworking, noble, successful, and my favorite one of them all, a job creator. A lot of the same language you hear people using to defend billionaires today. This all came crashing down when a scathing 19-part expose was published in McClure's magazine exposing the sheer corruption, cheating, and anti-competitive practices this supposed successful billionaire engaged in order to maintain his monopoly. In just a few short years, Rockefeller saw his reputation get completely nuked into the ground. He became a national villain. He was routinely mocked in local newspapers. He couldn't even leave his house without fearing for his life and for his safety. This was the beginning of the end of the oligarchy and the end of the original Gilded Age, where a few wealthy individuals hoarded everything while everybody else lived in horrible working conditions and abject poverty. And what came next was something far better for once. But here's the craziest part. The historical parallels between then and now are strikingly similar to the Gen Z awakening happening everywhere in the world right now as we speak. And as a wise man once said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. I believe we are entering the final stage of this broken system totally collapsing under its own weight. And from its ashes, we might just build something better again. Part 1. How the elites fall. The process of toppling a seemingly invincible empire can be broken down into 4 historical phases that we see play out time and again throughout history. Phase 1 is the extraction phase. This is where the wealthy ruling elite extracts as much as humanly possible from the working class. We saw this happen in the French Revolution, where the French aristocracy paid 0 in taxes, while peasants paid literally everything. Sound familiar? Gaslighting is very strong in this phase, with the elites constantly pushing down the narrative that the system is fine and it's just your own fault if you can't get ahead in life. They need to maintain public trust in the system that's set up to be rigged in their favor. Once the public begins to question its legitimacy, however, this is where the cracks begin to show. Phase 2, the questioning phase. As the name would suggest, this is when the public slowly but surely begins to question the legitimacy of the system. Does it really reward those who rightfully deserve it? Is it really possible to achieve anything you want just by working hard alone? Most of all, did the rich actually truly earn their wealth? As you'll soon see, the answer is almost always universally no. Phase 2 isn't close to the grain revolution yet, but it's where the cracks slowly begin to show. Phase 3, public pressure. After millions of people begin questioning the system, a pressure valve begins to build until it finally bursts. People can only be financially pushed to the limit so much before riots ensue, revolutions form, and governments are forced to either address the issue or get eaten alive. Phase 4, the breaking point. Now, this is where it all finally starts to fall apart. Typically, it begins with a singular tipping point event like the Gen Z revolutions going on right now, or this incident right here, with millions of people openly celebrating the death of the CEO afterwards. This is the point I believe we're at right now, and there's plenty of current events going on that suggest that. This is actually the most important phase because the next phase after this is when meaningful reform can actually happen and a better world is rebuilt. So we can't give up hope now. But to see how this has actually unfolded in real life before, let's go back to our story about how the world's most powerful billionaire in the original Gilded Age was cut down, broken, and humiliated after decades of ruling with an unstoppable monopoly. Part 3, Ida Tarbell. In 1857, Ida Tarbell was born to a teacher mother and an oil worker father. Her dad works as an oil producer throughout her childhood, building storage tanks, small refineries, and other related equipment. He is the personification of a good, honest, hardworking, middle-class man. Due to the nature of her father's work, a young Ida Tarbell grows up learning the basic ins and outs of the oil business. This would be very key knowledge for her future life mission of taking down the biggest, most corrupt oil monopoly in history. In 1872, Ida was only a young teenager in high school when Rockefeller would ruin her childhood forever. It was at this time when Rockefeller formed a puppet company known as the Southern Improvement Company, and what it really was, however, was a shady, backroom secret alliance between Standard Oil and the major railroads of the time to give Rockefeller's company hidden discounts and secret rebates on oil transportation costs. This priced out smaller competitors who then couldn't compete at all. Ida Tarbell's father, unfortunately, was one of those smaller businesses, unable to compete with the corrupt monopolistic practices of all the mighty corporations. His business went bankrupt and his family faced total financial ruin. It got so bad that reportedly one of her father's business partners actually took his own life. This was Ida's first taste of the brutality and sheer injustice of capitalism, and it totally ruined the rest of her childhood forever. But out of this trauma, a phoenix would eventually rise from the ashes. This is the beginning of the most epic revenge arc story ever. Hey guys, we set out on a mission during the summer to take down the biggest, most vile Gen Z hater, the Angry Guy. A straight up horrible, horrible human being who hates Gen Z so much, he even celebrates them dying. Thanks to you, we've gained a ton of ground on him over the summer, and we've set a new goal to surpass him in subscribers and defeat him once and for all by the end of the year. So, if you're new here and enjoying this content, definitely consider subscribing and helping us take down the biggest, most evil, final boss Gen Z hater. Part 4. Early years. After graduating high school, Ida Tarbell had a relatively normal, traditional early adulthood. She went to college, graduated top of her class, teachers commented on how intelligent, but at times rebellious she could be. She graduated college in 1880 and briefly worked as a school teacher in a small town in Ohio until she was so exhausted by the low wages and intense workload that she decided to call it quits. During this time, however, she discovers an interest and passion for journalism, and she quite enjoys the process of reading, researching, and stitching together a written masterpiece. She even moves to Paris for a few years, learning French, maintaining an active social life, and enjoying the newly constructed Eiffel Tower. She earns a living by writing for American newspaper publications at this time and gradually builds a reputation as an honest, trustworthy, and fair journalist, the opposite of sensational journalism. In 1894, she gets a job writing for McClure's magazine, which was one of the most popular publications at the time. Her big break comes when she publishes her biographies of Abraham Lincoln and Napoleon, which captivates the entire American public with how well written and thoroughly researched they are. This catapults her into journalistic celebrity, and the newfound clout presents her the opportunity of a lifetime when one day she hears rumors that Rockefeller may not quite have been the fair and noble capitalist successful story that everyone once thought. Part 5. The Ultimate Revenge. Armed with the investigative journalism skills she's acquired over the years and the burning, revenge-fueled passion of her childhood trauma, this is where the most epic anime revenge arc story begins. Ida Tarbell begins to set her sights on Standard Oil, the company that ruined her family when she was young. She becomes a one-woman intelligence agency, traveling the country to access archives, digging up countless business documents, interviewing dozens of ex-Standard Oil employees, and gradually, piece by piece, uncovering all the shady backroom deals Rockefeller participated in. Standard Oil actually gains wind of this at the time, and as you'd expect, they engage in even more corrupt practices to try and stop her. Executives spy on her, try to block her from accessing records. They even intimidate her sources and go on a massive misinformation campaign to try and discredit her. But none of this works. The public isn't buying it, and she continues on simply collecting the receipts. She spends an entire 2 years from 1899 to 1901 relentlessly investigating until she's about to reconstruct an entire mental model on the economic network of Standard Oil. In November 1902, she decides she finally has enough information, and this is where the bombshells begin to drop. Month by month, she publishes a new part of her now famous scathing expose, The History of Standard Oil. She reveals to the public how Rockefeller was far from the noble, hardworking, honest, successful billionaire that everyone once believed. She revealed the truth about how the empire of Standard Oil was really built. Corrupt backroom deals with other corporations, monopolistic practices that totally undermine fair competition, ruthless and even illegal business practices that ruin lives and families, including, of course, that of her father. Bribing politicians, secret rebates, monopoly coercion, the list goes on. For the next 2 years, this expose becomes the center of national attention. The 19-part journalistic masterpiece becomes a highly anticipated national event, with people anxiously and eagerly awaiting the release of every new chapter, much like how you would wait for the next episode of your favorite show on Netflix today. Ida Tarbell became a national hero overnight. Her face appeared in national newspapers, and politicians, including the president at the time, Teddy Roosevelt, directly quoted her on a regular basis. This was the first time an ordinary journalist, just a girl from a small town whose childhood was ruined by a billionaire, came back to take down that very same billionaire decades later. Standard Oil was forced to break up into 37 different companies. Rockefeller totally lost control of his empire. Nobody wanted anything to do with him after that, and he spent his remaining years living alone, in fear of his life, with angry mobs following him everywhere he went. In a last-ditch effort to try to salvage his image before he died, he tried to reinvent himself as a generous philanthropist, giving away large sums of his extravagant wealth to try and save face, much like how we see billionaires doing today. But the public wasn't buying it at all, and neither should we today. Part 6. Back to the present day. So, what gives me a lot of hope in Gen Z to do something similar today is that modern technology and the information age has allowed all of us to essentially be Ida Tarbell on steroids. The Gen Z protests we see springing up all over the world right now are a direct result of Gen Z's unprecedented ability to organize and mobilize across social media. This is why I believe Gen Z has succeeded where even millennials failed when our Occupy Wall Street movement died just as fast as it started. With that being said, the one question that still remains is, why hasn't it happened yet? And I believe the reason is simply that we're sending the message the wrong way. As you all noticed by now, I'm sure, we have a really strange epidemic of poor people defending billionaires. But I don't think they're stupid, I just think they don't quite understand how billionaires really came to power. You'll see memes such as this, such as, "None of your problems are because someone else is a billionaire." That, of course, is totally and objectively false, but it's understandable why someone might believe that. In my opinion, the conversation around the modern-day wealth inequality gap hits a brick wall because we're simply focused on the wrong things. We always talk about why they should pay more taxes in the sense of why it'd be good for society if they were to do so, essentially arguing that they should do so out of good conscience, but not that they're morally obligated to. But in my opinion, the conversation needs to shift to the standpoint of why they're morally, fundamentally obligated to owe it to us. Just like John D. Rockefeller, today's billionaires didn't earn their money ethically and certainly weren't self-made the way they want you to believe. Elon Musk receives billions of dollars of taxpayer-funded government subsidies. Google only exists because DARPA, a government-funded military agency, invented the internet and gave it billions of dollars of grant money to get their idea off the ground. Samsung was the beneficiary of the South Korean government giving it billions of dollars of free grant money and infrastructure investments. And this proves that the whole meme that none of my problems are because someone else is a billionaire is totally and objectively false. My tax dollars are literally going to fund all the massive spending projects billionaires are pursuing, which means by definition, they are directly affecting my life and they are a problem for all of us. Even if you look at the AI industry right now, we shouldn't be talking about universal basic income in the context of, well, they just should give it to us because AI took all our jobs. We should be talking about it in the context that they absolutely 100% morally owe us a UBI because AI learned to communicate in the first place from reading the text humans, people like you and me wrote on the internet. We are morally owed a UBI because we are literally funding and subsidizing the massive power costs of their ridiculous AI data centers right now. The massive changes and reform that came after Ida Tarbell's scathing expose didn't happen because people were just begging Rockefeller for money because, well, it'd be good for society. It happened because they realized that the wealthy inherently lie, cheat, and steal from the poor to obtain their wealth, and the least they could do is funnel some of that money back into improving the very society that they themselves benefited from so much. The point here is that the fight for our futures won't be won by asking politely. It will be won by pointing out the facts and evidence that we demand and are entitled, yes, entitled, to a better life. Part of the reason I have so much hope in Gen Z is because they're already fundamentally altering the global economy in many ways for the better. We explore this more in this video right here. Check it out. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.